Barbara Kearns Aubrey wants to know, what can I alone change? And before I get to that question, let me just say this. Barbara Kearns Aubrey, when I knew her a few years ago, was just Barbara Kearns. And Barbara Kearns was in the theater department at the University of Florida. And I think I can say this with some confidence. I know I was not alone in this belief. Barbara Kearns was simply the most beautiful person I've ever seen in my life. She just is and was stunning. Stunning. And you combine that with actual genuine talent. I think she was probably the best actress in the department. And at a time when I was at my absolute lowest, when I was at my geekiest, my most miserable, my most unhappy, she was just luminous. And everybody, including the professors, including the gay professors, were just madly in love with her. Everybody had the biggest crush on her, and I did too. And she was very kind to me, and we were friends. We hung out and went around together, and now she watches the Stratosphere Lounge. So, Barb, you are a wonder. Those of you out there who are soap opera fans, and don't hold me to this because it's been about 20 years since I actually heard this, but she played Nina for a while. I think it was Nina on All My Children. She was the first famous person I ever knew. She was. We were out on the street one night. I was working in a nightclub. We were out on the street one night. I was working in a nightclub in Miami Beach. I was doing the lasers and the lights and the videos. And Barb came down to visit, and she was doing All My Children up in New York. That's the first time I ever got stopped on the street by somebody and said, "Are you Nina?" I said, "Yes, I am." Spectacularly talented, beautiful person, very kind, very lovely, kind to me, and just so proud to be a friend of hers, and so proud to know her then, and so proud to know her now. So Barbara Kearns Aubrey asked a question that I think is probably one of the most profound questions we've ever had here. What can I alone change in this world that seems to be going to the devil? I think the answer, Barb, is everything. Everything. I think that's really how we have to think about things. We are the masters of our own destiny, and the choices that we make as individuals are translated into the choices that we make as a society and as a culture. And as a civilization, it makes history. Our individual choices make history. I said this on the road a lot when I was on the road first half of the year. That Winston Churchill, who I've been doing an awful lot of reading about, basically made a decision every day to get up and defy the Germans, defy Hitler. He had no reason to believe that he could win. Certainly the British had been just completely, utterly overwhelmed. All of Europe had fallen to the Nazis. But Churchill believed he could beat him, and every morning he woke up and got out there on the rubble and gave the big V for victory and said, "We're going to destroy these people. Their victory is inevitable. We will fight them on the beaches." I've said this many times. But really what it comes down to is, what can I alone change? And one of the things I think that we can ask ourselves is, what do we do to feed this beast? How much compliance do we go with this giant monstrosity? It seems to me to be collapsing under its own weight. It really genuinely does. Obamacare has been pushed back another 2 years. It's a catastrophe. I'd like to have people start feeling some pain now for the decisions that they made. But I don't want anybody, it's a hard thing to say. It's like, I don't want Americans to suffer. But I do think if you vote for a policy, you ought to, pay the price for your voting decision. So, what we can change, Barb, is we can change the way we think, we can change the way we vote, but the one thing we have to change, I think, constantly, is we have to change this idea that this thing is inevitable. We have to change the idea that decline is inevitable. We have to change the idea that these people are unbeatable. We have to change this idea that we can't win this thing, because we can, and we're gonna. I know it seems hard to believe, but it's true. I spent 4 weeks out of the city. I was up in Idaho. I won't say where, because the last thing I want to do is have a mob of Angelinos, especially, and Californians generally, moving up to this place. But I'll tell you something. This country is so fundamentally sound once you get out of the metropolitan areas. It's just so fundamentally sound. So what we can change is we can change our behaviors. We can get out and vote. We can do more volunteering for Get Out the Vote programs. We can rally around a candidate, even if he's not a good candidate. And we'll get to that in a minute, because we got a couple questions about third parties and things like that. We can change any number of things. But I think the one thing we have to change is this idea, each individually in our own hearts, that somehow that this decline is inevitable and that these people are going to win by default and there's nothing we can do to stop them. One of the things somebody pointed out to me, sent me a quote from Ayn Rand, and it was basically talking about how impotent their philosophy is and how impotent they are, how they depend on our acquiescence. These are people, our political opponents, who are destroying this country through collectivism. These are people, look at Joe Biden, look at Barack Obama. Barack Obama was the only president of the Harvard Law Review never to write a law review, and I accepted that explanation for the first 4 years of his presidency, and it's only until very recently that I just took a look at that and said, that doesn't make any sense. Why would it be that they would have their first black president of the Harvard Law Review not write any law reviews? Doesn't make any sense. I just accepted it, and I knew it was a fact because it is a fact. Then it suddenly hit me like a lightning bolt. Of course he wrote law reviews. They just weren't published because they were so awful. Because they were just so awful. He's not a very smart guy. He's not just, people have called him an affirmative action president. I read an article that's much, much, much more on point. He's not so much an affirmative action president, although that is what allows him to get away with what he gets away with, is his skin color. It's just that simple. Let's just come out and say it. But what he really is he's the first of the self-esteem movement presidents. He's a guy who's been told all his life he's bright, he's brilliant, he's wonderful, he's magnificent, he's so articulate. Oh, he's so incredibly well-read, and he's such a great speaker and all this, but he's not. He's mediocre. I think he has an IQ of 108, something like that, You can tie his shoes. But he's not the guy he thinks he is. That's why in this article, I can't remember who wrote it, but that's why in the article, he'll constantly compare himself to Lincoln. He compares himself to Lincoln because he has no idea who Lincoln was and what Lincoln did. That's why he gets away with it. So hang in there, Barb. You especially, darling, because I owe you a lot. But all of us can change our behaviors, and all of us can change the way we feel about things. But don't give up. That's the most important thing. Now, because we have 5 words